So in a bombshell YouGov survey this week that was done by the Women's Policy Centre, 93% of Brits want men who are illegal migrants who sexually assault or rape somebody here to be immediately deported. No ifs, no buts, just go. The British public is starting to speak. But they went one step further. 67% said that illegal migration was actually damaging women's safety in this country. Hear, hear, at last people are seeing it. And it adds up because week after week, we see another migrant in court raping or abusing a woman or a child. Open borders supporters yell at me all the time. The problem isn't migrants, the problem is men. The problem is men. I grant you that. Women have always been in danger from men, but we've got enough bad uns of our own. We don't need to bring in more across the borders who come from cultures where women are not even remotely treated like they are in this country, even by those bad uns. Every single rape by an illegal migrant is an avoidable travesty, a life destroyed that didn't have to happen, a child abused that didn't have to happen. The people have now delivered their verdict. Kick out these violent criminals who have broken into our country. Politicians, it is time to put women's safety above open borders. Toughen up. Stop making the UK the haven that it is for these dangerous criminals who arrive on our shore whenever the weather is okay, Kai, by their hundreds, 700, I think, or just under today. The British people have chosen women's safety over open borders.
Here.
I'm finished.
I'm going to go to you first on this, because I know you're torn on this issue.
I am torn on this issue,
But the polling is pretty overwhelming here.
I mean, you can do polls on almost anything and get whatever result you want. I am a little bit torn. No, but let me explain. Let me explain, guys.
Even 87% of Green voters supported the proposition that deporting illegal migrants guilty of sexual or violent crime.
Well, they probably should be getting rid of their leader because he's over there actually encouraging more to come over. Look, listen, in principle, of course, I agree. But I think a lot of violence against women is done by someone that knows them, whether it's a partner, ex-partner, etc.
Did you hear what I said? Did you hear what I said?
I think there's an element of me that thinks some of the dog whistling has actually worked, where people have this sense of everyone coming on boats are like rapists and assault and they're going to do it. It's not true.
Who said
However, though, I do think, obviously, because I'm always standing an advocate for women's rights, that the rights of women should override everything else. That's true, but I don't like this framing and positioning of migrants somehow all being rapists and a danger to women. That's actually
can you give me one person
statistically not true.
Can you give me one person who has said that all migrants are rapists?
The dog whistling sounds that come from a lot of people on the right, that's what comes
I'll repeat the question. Can you give me one person who has said that all migrants are rapists?
God, I can even just point to a president of a very well-known country that asserts that anyone that comes from a country of people of colour are somehow bad for the society. I think what is happening is the
Donald Trump has not said that.
A lot worse than what's actually happening. Although, in principle, I do agree that women obviously should be safeguarded. But I think it's just being used and blown out of proportion.
This video is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Protect yourself this Christmas with one of the best VPNs out there. Cybercriminals are out to get your bank account information while you do your Christmas shopping online. But you can protect your privacy, money, and identity now with ExpressVPN for as little as 8 pence a day. Click the link now to claim up to 75% off.
Can I ask you something? Because what Trey touched on there was essentially an either-or, right? He said, because we're in the world of trade-offs, and I think what you're saying and what Renée just said is, look, we don't need any more migrants, whether or not they are committed. Obviously they're not all rapists, they're not all criminals. We know that. We wouldn't say that. But you're saying the risk is too much to take if it's between migrants' rights and the safety of women and girls. That's quite a black and white argument, isn't it? Well,
it's a very easy one.
Yeah, like the amount of people coming from Pakistan as asylum seekers, for example, I think is in the top 5 total for the number of countries. There's no war going on in Pakistan at the moment. In fact, we know that many Pakistani asylum seekers go back on holiday back home to what is apparently meant to be a dangerous situation for coming back to the United Kingdom. There's something very curious that happens in these trials, which happen day after day after day after day, when a illegal migrant has sexually assaulted a young woman in this country. And that is, every single time their publicly funded lawyer will point to cultural differences as an argument for why they should get some sort of mitigation. Now, isn't that curious? Because the thing is, everyone who is saying that these people should be let in are basically saying this isn't a cultural issue, this is about men, which is what we just heard. And yet, whenever they're trying to get off after they've sexually assaulted young women, they say, well, you know what, we've come from a culture where we have different views about consent, where we have different views about the treatment of women. There is an intense contradiction here, and it is so blatantly obvious that they will use the cultural argument when it suits them, and yet whenever the left wants to say, well, we're all equal, culture doesn't really matter, this is a male problem, then they'll use that argument. It's a nonsense.
I also think it's really important to think, Trey, about your framing, because it is actually your framing that has allowed grooming gangs to go under the radar.
How?
Because by saying, you know, most rapes here are happened by people that are in their own home, it's not a cultural thing, most of these men are not rapists, therefore we shouldn't do this dog whistling. So people didn't. They shut up. They said nothing because they didn't want to be accused by people like you
that's absolute
of dog
nonsense.
whistling.
You know me, I'm not a lefty. I actually am in favour.
I don't know that, actually.
I am in favour of looking at any cultural underpinning which results in someone being harmed. I would happily throw out every single migrant that has actually been proven in court
So the
to have been
15-year-old
violent against
girl...
anyone.
So the
I am not
15
someone that is,
all right.
oh, no, you should look at it. Of course you should.
So the 15-year-old
100%.
girl...
Have I not said that consistently?
The 15-year-old girl that was dragged out of a park by two Afghan migrants this week, and a British woman called out to her, are you okay? And she called back, no, I'm not okay. But that woman then didn't do anything about it.
That was wrong.
Yeah, of course it was wrong.
I would have done something about it.
So would I. But do you know why she probably didn't? Because she saw two Afghan men and she was probably scared for her own safety and scared about that response.
You're inferring that's the case. She was probably just scared for her own safety, but I absolutely would do something. In fact, I actually be quite harsh on anyone that does any sort of sexual violence against women. I wouldn't just send them back. I'll send them back probably missing body parts. There is nothing wrong with that, but I think this blanket assertion of migrants, we're not talking about people on the boat, 4 or 5%. All migrants are harmed, so let's stop it all.
You say the same line every week. I've just asked you to give me a single person who has said that.
Right now at this moment, in the same way you don't always ask what I want you to do.
Trey, I've asked you to give me a single person who says what you are saying. You have been unable to do so.
Okay, and
no one is saying that all migrants are rapists.
Yep.
No one is saying that all migrants are evil. But what we're saying is if you come from a culture which is very different from a Western liberal democracy, it is statistically more likely that you are going to have very different attitudes towards women. And as a result of that, it is statistically more likely that there will be more sexual assaults occurring from that culture. That's common sense.
Can I ask back to you, Will, and maybe the rest of the panel, we can open this up. How do you then define, if we accept that we want some level of migration into this country?
Sure.
No, we don't accept that. I don't accept that.
That's separate.
Not
so
now.
you want to shut down all migration?
5-year moratorium on all of it.
Regardless
Isn't
of
that
any
the
impact.
political equivalent of throwing the baby out with the bath?
Don't care. I want to look after people here first. Charity begins at home. Let me.
All migration.
Let me read what Lisa Brand says. It's really interesting analogy.
You're really out on a limb there, Dr. Renée.
No, I'm not out on a limb at all.
Migration.
All migration stopped for 5 years. I'm not out on a limb.
What would happen with the NHS? I mean, there's a lot of reliance at the moment.
Do you know how many doctors didn't get jobs this year, Kai?
So you,
how many nurses didn't?
When you get upset with me, I'm Kai. I quite like that.
I think I actually know the answer. Is it 16,000?
Yes.
16,000.
How many nurses didn't get jobs? We have plenty of people
So
here
you
that
think
can
that
be.
we have enough, and that if we completely stop migration, we'll have no
Do you
impact
think all
on us
the people in the
economically
NHS are
in any
just
way,
going
shape,
to
or form?
leave?
Trey,
Do you think they're going to leave?
stop and
We're
think
talking
about
about
it.
needing more
It's
doctors.
not just about NHS doctors. It's about scientists, academics.
Sure.
Across every single sector, immigrants provide value
Don't agree.
society. To throw people out based on a small subsection of that
I didn't say
immigration,
throw people out.
illegal migration,
I said
people coming
stop.
over on boats on certain nationalities.
I said stop all migration. I didn't say
Yes.
throw people out. I said stop all migration for 5 years while we sort our house out. Lisa Brand says to you
It'll
two,
never, Rio.
regarding the not all migrants are bad argument, which is what you've both just said, if you had a bowl of Skittles and someone told you there was just one in there laced with enough arsenic to kill you, would you continue to eat them?
That's a good
Country
point.
is not a bowl of
Would
Skittles,
you
Dr.
continue
Renée.
to eat them?
These silly metaphors are
Literally-
thin gruels.
Can I please pick up on Trey's point that, well, we need people from foreign countries as nurses or as doctors or whatever.
Yeah.
That would make sense if it wasn't by definition a Ponzi scheme. Because when a nurse comes to this country, say, for example, from Pakistan, they will bring 4 to 6 family members who will all be eligible to be on the NHS. And so therefore you create an increased demand for NHS services for one nurse.
It's changing the rules on family reunions. It's changing those rules as part of the November 17th massive changes to the asylum system.
Let me ask one question, though. Would that also include Ukraine?
No, people aren't coming from Ukraine. Now, that's over.
There were lots of people that came from Ukraine. If you had power at that time, would you also stop people coming from Ukraine? If not, why not?
Well, it's irrelevant.
It's not. I just want to know. It's very relevant.
No, it's not relevant
because
at all.
It sounds... Will is very specific about certain countries posing a danger. Therefore, would you cherry-pick what countries can?
But once again...
And would you power what Trump said? Let's look at the Scandinavian, blonde, blue-eyed countries. They can come because they're...
I didn't think about colour. Once again...
I didn't mention colours.
You did. You just did.
I said blonde, blue-eyed. I didn't say colour. So you're talking about
because so many black people have blonde hair and blue eyes.
Certain cultures are okay, but others are barbaric.
Yes, that is by definition true.
Will